Hello everyone, and thank you for your patience today. We are going to start our session today with Kofax, and we have Bob Monio and David Grundell presenting to us today, and they're going to be talking about driving financial performance in Dynamics NAV 365 BC with intelligent automation. And we just ask that if you do have any questions, please go ahead and type those into the questions box and we will get those called out at the end of our presentation. And just as a reminder, we do record our webinars, so this will be recorded and saved to our on-demand webinar library, and it will be on our website by the end of the week for you to review again, or if you'd like to share it with anyone. So now I will pass it on to Bob, and he will kick off our presentation.
Well, hello everyone, and we thank you today for joining us for this presentation on driving financial performance in Dynamics NAV, Dynamics 365 Business Central with intelligent automation. My name is Bob Monio. I'm a Director in Business Development here at Kofax, and I'm also going to be joined by David Grundell. David is an individual on our team who is responsible for sales engineering associated with our intelligent automation and what we'll call our ReadSoft Online cognitive capture platform. I will apologize in advance as we get started here though, because unfortunately I have the wrong name on the next slide, so I would trust that David will not get mad at me in that regard. But we're very, very pleased to have you joining us here today. And as pointed out by Angie, if you have any questions, please do put them into the chat box so that we can respond back to you during the course of today's discussion. And as I mentioned, our agenda, as you can see there, I have the wrong name for David. We will be going through some background on the solution that Microsoft has implemented around accounts payable. Certainly financial performance is very, very important to all organizations today as they work to achieve better return on investment in the things that they're doing with NAV and with Dynamics 365 Business Central. And certainly from Microsoft's perspective and from Innovia and Kofax, this is a key area that we want to help you unlock and be able to see more return on what you've paid for the solution. And in the financial space, this is a key criteria. Accounts payable can be very expensive to the organization when it comes to the work that you're doing, and we'll talk a little bit about that here in a moment. And the key today is for you to step away and understand how, together with Microsoft, both Innovia and also Kofax with our solution in cognitive capture, are delivering a return on investment that you can, no pun intended, capture today and take advantage of going forward. We'll also be doing a quick demonstration and a little bit of Q&A around this, and we'll finish with a quick summary and some pointers on where to go to get more help and more support on the solution, and certainly how you can take advantage of this with Innovia in order to be able to help you move forward on these goals. So let me go ahead and get started, and I'm going to talk just briefly about what brought us here today. You know, certainly, as I mentioned, Microsoft is a company that has continued to innovate the work that it has done around the NAV and Business Central platform. In fact, as we've seen, this has been a long history of innovation, specifically helping to grow the platform and invest in making the platform continually better for you. In the area of invoice automation, however, this was something that Microsoft really came to after realizing that finance as an area of improvement was something that they needed to address in the platform. And this goes back to the 2015 timeframe when Microsoft began to look at what design they were going to put into future releases of, at that time, still called NAV, and what were going to be those features that they were going to embed. They recognized that for accounts payable processing, you had to have some core building blocks that would allow you to take and improve the overall cost per invoice and introduce savings into that area. If you're a finance executive on the call today, you probably know what a cost per invoice is. You realize that that is the cost that it impacts your business with for an invoice to come in from a supplier, to flow through your system, and finally get paid. This cost per invoice can range anywhere from $25 all the way up to $50, $60 or more. And this is a tremendous drain, because if you think about the number of suppliers that you work with and the invoices you're processing and your need to be able to get these invoices taken care of, this really does become a situation where if you can shave that cost down, you save your company business, money, and you're able to turn that into money then that can be used for other things inside the organization, specifically new business growth, acquisitions, and other things. Also, as a finance executive, you recognize that you have compliance needs. You have to be able to go back and find invoices. Most people today still go to filing cabinets and go through filing cabinets searching for an invoice that was either not paid correctly and a supplier is complaining, or perhaps it's a situation where the invoice might be lost and you have to go back and re-request that. And having unhappy suppliers does translate down eventually to unhappy customers. So a company that really focuses on improving invoice automation truly is able to cut their cost per invoice, introduce better cycle time from the standpoint of procurement to pay all the way through, and ultimately drive better customer performance. So the functional areas that Microsoft addressed included the things that would be needed to embrace invoice automation, such as an ability to store and archive documents in such a way that you can very quickly go back and find them, but also you can meet a compliance need and be able to prove that you have invoices and other things from the standpoint of your business. Also, the ability to automate using approval workflows and other types of activities in order to ensure then that you can quickly approve for payment a supplier invoice that needs to have a checkoff, for example, by a particular individual in the organization in order to get paid. Being able to process POs and PO-based invoicing is a key today, and without the ability to automate that, you're going to have a significant problem introducing process automation into your accounts payable area. Also, you have to have search and capture tools for purposes of being able to manipulate and get at those supplier invoices. And finally, this is where Kofax comes in. It is the ability to extract your invoice data, the data off of the invoice, and be able to get that electronically into the NAV and Business Central system for processing purposes. This is where they came to us in 2015 and said, we would like to use your service, ReadSoft Online, for purposes of doing this, because what they recognized is that companies were paying someone to sit and key invoices into the system. The reason why they were doing that is because they had to get that data in for processing purposes. And as you can probably imagine, larger invoices, more data, transcription errors, all the problems that came with this necessitated a scenario whereby having a cloud-based OCR service that could seamlessly extract that data and get that into the system would save the company significant amounts of money. In fact, as I later on make a comment, this can save a business anywhere from $5 to $20 per invoice just from using that OCR service. So Microsoft introduced all of these baseline services in NAV 2016. And since that time, we've seen additional releases of NAV and now Business Central coming to the forefront. The good news is Microsoft continues to invest in these, because as they do this, what transpires then is we start to see then benefits coming back into the business. Core benefits that resolve themselves in reductions in errors, meaning that you're able to get the invoices seamlessly into the system. There's also improved visibility as it applies to being able to see how the invoice is flowing through, how the validation is working, the approvals that are taking place, and ultimately the customer getting paid. So you're going to see additional cost savings. You can save up to 80% against your cost per invoice if you optimize and leverage these systems in this fashion. And of course, enhance productivity. If you can get your invoices through the system more significantly and more succinctly, granted, then you're going to be able to process more invoices, which means you can be doing more business, generating more revenue, more cost savings back to your business, and scaling accordingly. This is really the promise of what can happen from an AP automation perspective. Now you might be asking, okay, why is Kofax here? Again, let's harken back to that extraction process. This is a cloud-based service, a service that is running on the Azure cloud. It is multi-tenant. It is a learning engine-based system, which means it learns about your invoices. It learns about the things that it's seeing, which in difference to other types of OCR services on the market, which are something where you actually have to program them. By being in the cloud, you don't have to have hardware. You don't have to constantly maintain the software. You don't have to do any of these sorts of things. And the beauty of the way that this integration was built, because Microsoft built the integration to ReadSoft Online, is that you can process invoices and be up and running in less than 10 minutes. Absolutely unheard of in the market today, because most systems will require up to 30 days to get installed and get set up, and then you still have to go through all the Q&A and all the testing and other processes associated with it. The system is structured around having 3 options available. The trial, which allows you to basically click try and buy, and then from there, using credit card, or eventually you could set up a long-term subscription if you wanted to, and I'll explain that in a minute. You can go with a basic type of configuration. You can see the store in the bottom right-hand corner. The store is accessible directly from NAV and Business Central, so you can go ahead and begin to use the service. Basic gives you a header only, or you can go with premium, which includes line item processing. Line item processing is a very powerful feature that allows you to deal with being able to do actual matching and comparisons against particular line items on invoices. And for many businesses, that's how they manage their PO back spend. So this is a feature that they take advantage of. I did say that you could use credit cards for this. We have many, many customers that leverage credit cards as their way of processing and working with the service. But we also have just as many, if not more, customers, Microsoft NAV and Business Central customers who have said they want to make long-term subscriptions to process even larger volumes of invoices. And by setting up a term subscription over multiple years, they save significant money, and this is the way that they proceed. So very, very flexible. This is one of the other reasons why Microsoft chose this service. And as I mentioned, you can be up and running in less than 10 minutes. So very, very quick from that standpoint, and it works with all of the releases of NAV 2016 forward, and also Dynamics 365 Business Central. So just some quick reminders. And as you can see, I have a statistic up here that you should pay attention to. If you're questioning yourself as to why I should go and try this, why should I go flip a trial switch and actually test it? You should be looking at a statistic there that says that you can save between $5 and $20 per invoice due to the OCR savings. This is something that is an immediate impact to your bottom line. And with a trial, it's no cost to you, but you can immediately start to see the benefit and advantage that can come from it. And then together with Innovia as your partner, you can begin to then leverage all of the other facets of the things that I just spoke of, knowing that together with ReadSoft Online, the workflow capabilities, the other types of tools and things that are being brought forward by NAV and D365 will allow you then to be able to see even more increased savings and more capabilities. And at the end of the day, a properly working AP department is one that's a happy department with happy people in it, and that's really what you want to get to, because that transcends down to what your customers see and how your customers work and want to work with you going forward in the future. Now, just something that I put up every time because I think it's important for you to understand how the two systems are really working, and allows us to reinforce this for you, is that what you'll see in the section here that I'm pointing to, it's kind of like a hard deck here between the two services. You'll see that we'll take everything coming in to the system, we'll look at it, we'll extract, we'll then transfer based on business rules, because we will synchronize master data directly from NAV and Business Central. This allows us to do some very important checking meaning validating that is a real supplier of yours, validating that the POs and other information is there. And we do all of this in the context of making sure that when we finally release it down into NAV or Business Central, you can then move ahead, do your workflow, and move immediately to payment. Now, understand, something else I didn't point out. Our service looks at the invoice as an entire invoice. The subscription charge does not reflect pages. Other vendors will focus on number of pages that you process. We focus on number of invoices that you process. And this is an important distinction. Once the invoice is released down into NAV and Business Central and it goes below this hard deck, so to speak, at that point, then the ticker clicks, and we count that as part of your subscription, as part of your usage. And that is also an important distinction, because any invoice that isn't passing your business rules, any invoice that might be coming in as garbage, any invoice that comes in as a duplicate, you can reject those. You can send them back to the supplier, and at that point they don't count against your cost. So again, another way that we're saving you money on your process, and ultimately then wanting to move to what we call straight through processing, which is the invoice comes in, it flows through, it hits your business rules, it's then delivered down. No interaction. And as David will point out, the largest percentage of invoices processed through the system fits this criteria. But it's that area of the exception, managing that exception, addressing that exception, that's where we want to be able to maximize your work there, help you out so that those don't occur that often, but when they do, they can be quickly resolved and the system can then proceed forward. So some important distinctions, but also a way for you to understand how these systems really do work together. So as we just close out some of the functionality associated with where we fit together and move on to our demonstration, let's just point out again, NAV and Dynamics 365 give you your AP automation tool set. They give you all the capabilities, and together with Innovia, you can unlock these capabilities. You have the workflow, you have the archiving, you have the search tools, and you have the user interface and functions maintained by Microsoft and continue to be enhanced by Microsoft specifically to give you what you need. Then we provide that integrated OCR capability, the complete invoice pass-through as necessary, all of the functionality necessary to be able to do that extraction and get that into NAV and Dynamics 365. There is that verification and learning engine, and as I mentioned, with the subscription approach or the use of credit cards and the trial and all the things that you saw in the store there, just in that brief interaction with it, but David will demonstrate more to you. In less than 10 minutes, you can be up and running and you can be processing invoices. And that is a huge, huge, huge savings. So what are you going to see in the demonstration? We're going to show you how to set up OCR extraction in Dynamics NAV, Dynamics 365. Pretty straightforward process. You're going to be going through your NAV screen, and you're going to be going in and you're going to be going out to the store, signing up, creating your account. You're then going to take and begin to process an invoice by either sending it in, because we support automatic configuration of email boxes for receipt of the invoices, or you can upload locally from a hard drive or another shared drive if you wanted to. We'll then go through and do the extraction of that information off of that. Once that extraction is done, we'll generate that searchable PDF, deliver it back into NAV and Business Central as an incoming document, and at that point, you can then begin to do your processing. So with that, let me go ahead and turn it over to David and ask David then to take the reins and demonstrate for you how financial performance is being delivered in this function. So David, over to you.
All right, thank you, Bob. All right, I'm sharing my screen. So what you see now is a Dynamics NAV start screen. So what we're going to do here first is to find our way to the store where you can sign up for either a free trial or any other service level that you desire. And you can reach all that information today from within Dynamics NAV. So in the top right search section here, if you just key in OCR for this service, you'll see the OCR service setup. Follow this link here, you get to this configuration card. This will take care of the whole integration between the two cloud systems here, but also it points you to where the store is to sign up for the actual service. So if you just follow this link here, it will bring you into the Kofax Retail Online sign up store. And I'm going to speed it up here. So in the store here, like Bob mentioned earlier in the presentation, you can choose between different levels of service. We're going to focus on the trial, the click try and buy service level today here, just by filling out this form here. Fill out it real quick. You will get an activation email. And the activation email contains a lot of information that you need to ingest into Dynamics NAV. So if you have this OCR configuration screen still open, and you open the email that you received from Kofax, it has some information. This is also fully documented. There are instructional videos and such that can guide you through this process, but basically you're inputting your authorization key, which is your unique ID in the cloud for the OCR extraction. You enter that into your NAV or D365 Business Central unit along with the username and password that you were assigned in or during the sign-up process. By doing so, you're already now connected the two systems to each other. This is basically all steps and any and all functionality you need to carry out to activate the OCR receiving part inside of Dynamics NAV, D365 Business Central. So I'm going to leave this open here, just showed you that how quickly I activated it, and also know in your NAV environment today, if you're on 2017 and up, 16 and up, you can search for OCR, and this functionality is already built in. It's built by Microsoft, fully supported and always available. So the next step I would do is to capture information from a supplier invoice, validate the data against the vendor master that resides inside of Microsoft Dynamics NAV, make sure that all the fields and data that you're interested in, such as the invoice number, maybe purchase order number, the total amount, and even the line items are extracted and OCR'd, and then they will be automatically ingested into NAV as an incoming document to sort of show you a brief end-to-end demonstration here. If I switch hats here real quick and go to the OCR extraction service that's called Retail Online, and it's a web-based SaaS solution that sits in the Microsoft Azure cloud. You will log into it as an AP user. You'll be assigned as many users you like, or I should say you can create as many users as you may need for this purpose. I'm just going to log in as a generic AP clerk here, which is the typical user role using this tool. So inside of Retail Online, this is the validation and exception handling screen, sits the invoices that you received from your suppliers, and also here sits the invoices that you might have scanned that you received in paper form. But very common, or most common, is actually that your suppliers are emailing you, let's say, PDF attachments or TIFF files as attachments, which they generated in their financial system, more or less automatically send it off to this predefined email address that you also receive with the service. By doing that or utilizing that process, you can further automate this, which means you don't have to manage and maintain the incoming emails. You don't need to print, to scan, or save an attachment in a folder, anything like that. It's going straight to the Kofax Retail Online extraction cloud from the supplier. In the cloud and behind the scene, or prior to this step I'm showing you here, the OCR extraction and the validations took place. It's a process that takes about 10 seconds per invoice, where we use, for example, the remit to address to validate it against your vendor master. And we know who the supplier is. We might know some purchase order information, or if it's a non-purchase order, we just capture the data that you're looking for. But to this service, you also have this screen for exception handling, because there might be that some of your supplier invoices have exceptions. By no means are you supposed to touch and manually confirm every and all invoice here. These are just exceptions. And a rule could be 50, 60, 70, or 80% for that matter of invoices will not stop with any exceptions. So you can get a very high percentage of straight-through processing here, meaning from the supplier all the way into an incoming document in NAV. And that is obviously the goal. But there might be exceptions. So if I open this one up, I'll show you one type of exception that you can receive. So here's an invoice that was emailed from the supplier in form of a PDF attachment. It shows up in this user interface. The image file is here. You can zoom in and out, move around to a comfortable view. You can use the image controls here to make it fit the screen and such. You have some icons and buttons here in the top left corner that sort of explains themselves. You can print it out if you need to. You can delete it, reject it. You can email it back to the supplier with a question. You can put it on hold if you're researching something or waiting for the vendor to be added to your vendor master or things of that nature. But more importantly is to the right here, some supplier information that comes directly from your vendor master inside of NAV. It's synchronized, and it's synchronized on the schedule with whatever frequency you feel is necessary. So what happened here is that we read this address and it matched this vendor inside of NAV. And assigned back to Reads Up Online is the vendor name, or supplier name we can call it, and the supplier number. It comes from your vendor master. That's good. You will need that later. And already here we determined that this is a valid supplier, so please move forward. Then what happens here is just reads everything that's printed on this invoice. And in my demonstration, I'm interested in these fields, these header fields, these footer fields, and these few line item columns. You can add as many fields you like here. There's no impact on your cost or performance or anything like that. It's just that when you work with OCR and you strive to achieve automation, less is more. Less is more is a healthy approach, which means if a field does not necessarily mean something or is required for you to process and pay the invoice, there's no need to try to capture it, right? So we keep it to minimum. So we have an invoice date, a number, a due date, and the amount fields in this case. Pretty straightforward. And then we just have some very basic, this is a non-purchase order, some basic line item information, right? So this invoice OCR, meaning the extraction rate is 100%, which means it read all the characters, which you can more or less expect it to do. Unless the image quality is really poor to that point where you have a hard time distinguish the characters with your human eyes, the machine is still applying image enhancements and improvements, but it comes to a point where the image is really, really, really poor. It can't read it. It's going to ask a human to try to confirm it. But in vast majority of cases, OCR is going to be near 100%. In this case, it's 100%. However, I do have a question on the invoice number. It's indicated by this yellow triangle. This indicates to the user that there is something, that a validation that didn't work out with invoice number. All the other fields have green checkboxes, which means they are read correctly and they're validated and assumed to be correct. But if I click on the invoice number, this is just to show you one of many built-in validations we have. But this is a duplicate, which means we've processed this invoice in the past. I have done so many times because it's my demo invoice, but it uses the supplier number, the invoice number, the date, and the total amount, and compare that to previous historic data. If it's the same, it will warn or notify the user saying that this is a potential duplicate. And from here, you can either override it, you can make it unique by trail with a character, you could reject it to a supervisor or user or manager, or you can email it back to the supplier, whichever way you deal with duplicates today. There are always ways to get through it, but just to show you some basic validations with it. So if I just say, okay, I'm going to overwrite that, now you can see the green OK button here showed up. That means that everything is validated and OK. When I click this button, this invoice data, the header, footer, and the line items, along with the invoice image, will be ingested to Microsoft Dynamics NAV or D365. This is central, more or less instant. So when I click here, it will be available as an incoming document in NAV. Now, for this demonstration, I'm not going to go into details on the OCR and the extraction too much, but there are obviously a lot of algorithms and validations taking place here. For example, there are assumptions. Since we're not working with true templates, which makes this very, very flexible. It doesn't have to, the invoice number does not have to show up in this exact location every time. Instead, we use what we call anchor fields and titles, which means all these fields can float around on this supplier or any of the other 1,000 suppliers that you do business with. It doesn't have to be in a fixed position. So use wordings and anchors to allow for the data to move freely on the invoice. But if I were to go click OK here, that means that I, as an accounts payable exception handling clerk, we can call myself here, I say this is OK. It will then go away. And you see I have no more invoices to work on just yet that are in an exception state. You might have received 50 or 200 invoices today, but only one stopped in this group. All the others went straight from your supplier or from your paper invoice all the way into NAV. But now I showed you one exception. I approved or overrode the duplicate warning. So if I switch hats again here and go back into, in my case, NAV 2017, and since we connected the two systems already, this is working. We could consider it in production. So if I search for incoming documents here, you will see that this invoice is now created inside of NAV. And this is how far we take it with this integration where we work with Microsoft to get the captured data along with the invoice image, create the document. From here, you can do, by help of Innovia or use standard NAV functionality, you can create workflows and routing rules and approval and spending limits and such. You will basically work off the OCR status, creating a workflow saying, is OCR status equals success? Create a purchase invoice or send it for an approval or whatever your process is to pay an invoice today. But this is how far we take it. But if I open up the incoming document here, you can see that the information that the OCR extraction service extracted and validated is now ingested and populated in these fields. You can also see that the invoice image has been brought over. You can at any time bring up the actual invoice and review it while you're inside your NAV environment. So that's a quick introduction to how this service works and how quickly, mainly what I'm showing you, how easy it is to start, especially if you sign up with a trial to try this out. You already have the OCR functionality built into NAV. All you need to do is sign up for the extraction service by going to the store, which you can find here again under the OCR settings configuration card. You go to the sign up store here. You sign up for it. You fill out this card. You ingest or email. I should mention that too. Sorry. You'll also get assigned an email address, and you can create as many as you like. But this is a system-generated email address that you can edit. But this is the address you would communicate to your suppliers or use yourself for testing. So if you submit an invoice attachment, a PDF file or a TIFF file or a PNG, whatever format you work with, if you send that to this email address, it's going to extract the data in the cloud. If there are no exceptions, you will see it as an incoming document in Dynamics NAV within a few minutes or a minute, actually. So all of your information is part of this welcome email when you sign up for the free trial version. Now, there are a few, I'm going to show you as the last section. This is where you can utilize Innovia and their expertise, but there are a few workflows built for this specific process under integration. For example, you could do this OCR workflow that I mentioned briefly. This will say if the status of the OCR receiving document is success, create a purchase document, which means instead of having the process end at the incoming document, you can take it one step further with this very simple workflow that's saying create all incoming create purchase documents of incoming documents from the OCR extraction service, for example. And then you can use many of these other ready-made workflows to send it to a specific user for approval based on the supplier name or the purchase order number that was extracted, all related to the OCR extraction service. However, nothing you configure inside of Kofax. Now, this invoice object lives and resides inside of NAV, and all the NAV functionality applies, not the Kofax extraction service. That's a brief overview here of how to configure it and how quickly you can get up and running. And we obviously recommend you to start off with the free trial, and very likely soon you'll sign up for the real production service. Anything to add there, Bob? This concludes my demonstration.
Well, I will add more. Actually, what I want to do is if I can ask Angie to pass control back over to me here, what I'm going to do is reflect the fact that while David has been showing you things inside of NAV and also Business Central, which works in a similar fashion, we've created an entire site of documentation, videos, and other information. Actually, David's releasing a new video which goes into great detail discussing your setup process and various things that can be done. It's on this website where you'll find the things that will help you do more with your solution. And I think if you've seen now the demonstration, you've seen how the process works, you can see how it's a very, very, very simple process and how it works and how it can be set up quickly and get you to start testing the invoice extraction and the delivery of invoices into your system. We really see this as the first building block as you move forward on your AP automation journey. And then of course we encourage you to take advantage of working with your Innovia team to unlock some of those things that David was talking about, those workflows and other capabilities that can be done, because this is further automation things that can be introduced to what you have and what's there. Also, Kofax does provide a tremendous amount of thought leadership, and for the finance executives on the call, this is an area where you can delve into what are the things that you can also be doing from the standpoint of taking and automating your finance operations. In the area of intelligent automation, certainly cognitive capture, of which ReadSoft Online is part of, is really one of those areas that includes many other facets and capabilities, such as robotic process automation, for example, that can also be introduced. But together, Kofax and Innovia can help you then unlock this capability and get you on the road to AP automation as part of your activity within your business. And it's really something that you need to be doing. And as a finance executive, this is the way where you can help your business grow and contribute to its overall success and get you moving down that path. So take advantage of these supporting materials and documentation that are available out there to you. So as we mentioned, as some of those next steps, it's important for you to begin to take a look at taking advantage then of that free trial account. There's nothing there that from a cost perspective, it's very simple to set up. You'll be up and running in less than 10 minutes. You have complete access to all of the features of ReadSoft Online. That includes the line item processing, for example. So you can test all of those things, and you can do this in concert with the Innovia team as they help you move down that journey. And as you test and evaluate it, we certainly believe, as will the many thousands of customers today that are taking advantage of this solution, we see somewhere between 5 to 10 new customers a day signing up for trials and taking advantage of the credit card process to sign up for the service. It is by far the leading and fastest growing solution in this space today. You should be able to take advantage of that as well. And we believe that you will see that return on investment come back to your organization. And as I mentioned, Innovia has all of the things that you need to understand how to work with NAV and Dynamics 365 Business Central. And as it applies to your AP automation goals, they can be your competitive weapon to help you accomplish that together with ReadSoft Online to help you move in that direction. So we encourage you to take advantage of that. Microsoft supports the solution and will continue to support the solution as part of their roadmaps here in the future. They are your first line for help. But if you ever have any additional questions and you want to pose those questions, you can certainly reach out to us either at rso-sales@kofax.com or rso-support@kofax.com for support questions. But certainly turn to Innovia for the things that you need and to help you as you move through this process. So in the short time today, we appreciate that you've joined us here as part of this webinar demonstration and discussion. We're glad we could be part of that. We thank Angie and the team for helping put it together. Angie, are there any questions that have come in that we can answer as part of the chat panel?
No questions have come through yet, Bob.
Okay, all right. Well, what I'm going to do is I'm going to encourage those that would be watching this either later, since it is recorded, or certainly on the call. If you have any further questions, please do join Innovia and also Kofax at upcoming events in the future. We certainly go on the road with Microsoft as well, and I know that Microsoft continues to do training in this space, but we'll be at forthcoming user group events and other activities, and we'll want to have an opportunity to speak with you there if indeed you have those questions. But take advantage of this. There are over 8,000 plus customers today leveraging ReadSoft Online, and as I mentioned, it is growing like a hockey stick because customers have figured out that by flipping that switch, they're saving immediate money to their bottom line, and that together with Innovia, they're adding even more functionality on top of that. So with that then, Angie, I'll just say thank you on behalf of the Kofax organization, myself and David here today, and we'll turn it back over to you.
All right, thank you both, David and Bob, for presenting today. And to everyone on today's call, or if you're watching on demand, thank you for joining us. We appreciate that. And as Bob mentioned, we do travel to other events. So Innovia will be at Directions in Las Vegas next week. So if you see us out there, please feel free to talk to the Innovia team as well. And we do have a few more webinars coming soon. Next week on May 9th, we have Joseph Gress from Innovia Consulting, and he will be presenting on using Visual Studio Code in a NAV 2013 database, performing a technical upgrade. So if you're interested in that webinar, please register for that. And we have Bonnie Wood, also from Innovia Consulting. She will be presenting on setting up a company in Business Central, and that webinar is going to be on May 14th. And also, you can check out our future events that are upcoming, and that's at innovia.com/events. Thank you again for joining us, and we look forward to seeing you again soon on another Innovia webinar. Have a great day, everyone.